Jameis Winston, almost 500 yards, couple of pick six, 3 touchdowns. One of them that wasn't a pick six was in the end zone last meaningful play of the game. Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator, talked about trying to find ways to limit those turnovers by Jameis Winston.
That's just something we just got to keep focusing on, keep correcting, keep working at, and making sure that we keep our attention to detail where it needs to be in terms of the number one thing, protecting the football. And I think, Jameis is the first one to admit that, and part of that is, technique stuff. Part of that is, everybody doing their job stuff, and part of that's decision making. So there's different things that go into those things, but at the end of the day, the quarterback has the ultimate responsibility for it. Well, you don't stop coaching it, number one. I don't think you just sit there and say, okay, it's okay, it's just the way it is. I think we keep coaching it, we keep hitting on it, why these things are happening and how can we correct them and to make sure it doesn't happen again next time. So I think there's that aspect of it. Obviously there with, the amount of third downs and 2-minute drives and things like that, we got into a lot more throwing the ball than typical.
There's 2 things about the interceptions relative to the Broncos games. They threw the ball 60 times. You don't really want to do that. And the other thing is, Jameis Winston believes his arm can make any potential throw on the football field. For the most part, he's right, but hash mark to the opposite sideline in an NFL game, you really don't want to do that.
The problem with Jameis isn't that he's not capable of making these throws. Like once in a game, he will. It's that is he capable of making these throws on command, right? And that's been something that he's proven to not be capable of doing. Also, another thing to think about with Jameis, we got to look at him like a pitcher, right? Like, how if this was a baseball team, you got a guy in there that likes to throw 110 miles per hour. You're watching that pitch count because you're like, hey, he's going to start losing gas. Once he starts losing gas, you're going to start getting a lot of hits. Jameis Winston threw 17 intermediate passes. To get that in context, Deshaun Watson took the first month of the season to get the 17 intermediate passes. So not only is Jameis throwing the ball 58 times, Dave, he's throwing haymakers every time, right? So when he gets to 60, he might be capable of throwing a field out, but he's exhausted by the time he gets to a field out. And let's extrapolate this to a season, right? If he does this for a season, you're probably going to be exhausted or injured by the end of the season. It's part on Jameis Winston to have better throw selection, like just not throw as many haymakers as he does. But I think it's also on Ken Dorsey to keep that in mind when he's calling these plays, which is, hey, Jameis is going to take the deep route, which means we can't get in a situation where we're on plus 45, 46 plays throwing the ball because he's naturally going to throw himself out of his pitch count.
He was a hell of a closer for Florida State, by the way. He threw 97-98 as baseball pitcher. He was pretty good. He's good.
Ain't it crazy that we all forget he was a 2-sport athlete?
Oh, yeah. No,
like, he is such a clumsy athlete. Like, when he runs, it's like, he was like a legitimate 2-sport guy coming out of Florida State.
Yep, he was.